Get started. This is the last session for the whole semester. And in a few minutes, we're gonna review the whole class for the whole year. So if you remember, starting from that semester, we started with GDP accounting. And so from there, we can establish a condition for the whole economy, okay? So what is the equilibrium condition for the whole economy? 林伟勋. What is the condition for the whole economy to be equilibrium? When we talk about microeconomics, any market, right? You have quantity supply equals quantity demanded. That is the equilibrium for a single market. But now we are talking about the whole economy. What is the condition for the economy to be in equilibrium? So we say, generally, we start from the simple one, without government, without international trade, right? So we say income. For anyone, if you had income, what can you do with that? You can use it to consume, right? And then use to save. That is for a person. And we divided the economy into two sectors. One is the household, so a single person, and then a business. So if a business has an income, what can it do? It can use it to consume and then to invest, right? So what is the condition for the economy to be in equilibrium? Hong Jie, what is the condition for equilibrium in the economy? I equal to S. And this is still very important for the final exam because we have to deal with IS model and LM model, so ISLM. So then what is IS curve? Han Ziyuan, what is IS curve? Okay? But, right, so then what else? You mentioned only part of it. So it talks about IS curve, right? IS curve talks about the relationship between interest rate and income, or we say production, right? Under what kind of condition? Exactly. Okay, so what is IS curve? IS curve depicts or tells us the relationship between interest rate and income when the economy is in equilibrium. So here, I equals S. Okay? And so after that, we have to measure GDP. Okay? So measure GDP, you need to have a very simple definition. So what is GDP? Huang Jiaxuan, what is GDP? What is? Okay. How? How to measure? But because the way you mentioned is too broad, right? So we have to measure specifically, what kind of items that you're gonna take as GDP.
消费
Okay?
投资
Okay?
政府支出
Okay?
还有那个进出口
net exports. Okay. But if we wanna know what is GDP, the definition, what is that?
国内生产的
Okay.
毛额。
Right, that's the term. So, what else? 陈佑熙 GDP, what is GDP? Louder, please. Okay, so for example, you go to a market, right? You make a transaction. Is that gonna be part of GDP? What about a firm? Say, there is a Luxogen, okay? What is Luxogen? 陈佑熙 Luxogen. No idea. 连胜凯 what is Luxogen?
纳智捷。
Exactly. So there's a car company, right?
Yeah.
So when this car company go to the market to purchase steel, is it part of GDP?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
李博彦, if Luxogen or say GM, Toyota, whatever, right? They go to the market to buy steel. Is that transaction counted as part of GDP?
Not really.
Not really. Okay, so why?
Depends on.
Because that steel will be processed, okay? And then as a final product. If you count it, okay, if when Toyota, Luxogen, Honda, they go to the market to buy steel, if that counts as part of GDP, what happened? You will count steel production twice, right? One when you buy it, and the other one because it becomes part of the car, right? When you sell it, then you count it again. So what is GDP? It is oftentimes we say within certain period, for example, 1 year or 1 quarter, right? Okay, the final value, okay, of whatever you produced. And so second-hand products, right? Second-hand product, does it count as GDP? No. And also, because it has to be produced, so stock market. So for example, today, let me figure that out. We have maybe $400 billion of transaction value in the stock market. So does that mean it is all part of the GDP? The answer is no, right? Because all the stocks, when you trade it, either you buy it or you sell it, it is not, okay, produced. It is only exchange what? Ownership, right? So yours becomes mine, mine becomes yours, right? So anyway, but Wang Jiaxuan said is quite right because we turned it into C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So this, even though we discussed it last year, but for the final exam, you still need it because this is the way to get to what? To get to IS curve, okay? And this is one way, okay? This is called expenditure approach. The other approach is we call factor, okay? So you have wage rate, okay? And then interest, net expenses, and then the profit from businesses, and then rent, okay? So even though you own your house, you don't pay rent, right? But somehow, the government will try to figure out what is the representative of this value. Okay, so basically from GDP, national accounting, all these things, we get to the basics of macroeconomics. And then it comes John Maynard Keynesian model, okay? Keynes has a different idea about the economy, okay? So, Xu Zhongxuan, is the market perfect? In the eyes of Keynes, is the market perfect? Okay, and so what's wrong with the market? So the other one is what? Classical, right? Classical school. Classical school says that basically the market runs perfectly, okay, with an invisible hand. So you don't need to do anything. When the economy is bad, right, then some company gonna collapse, they're gonna go out of business, go bankrupt. But then, because these companies go bankrupt, supply will decrease, price will go up. And so some companies gonna take advantage of this opportunity, and then the economy will move back. But Ken say, no, this is not the case. So what's wrong? He has 2 points. This first point is the market is not perfect. In what respect that is not perfect? Sometimes we say price will move up and down, right? Very easily. But in Ken's opinion, no, it's not. The price gonna move down or up, right? Is it true? From the point of Ken's view.
Yeah.
So which part? For example, right? In Taiwan we have something quite special, right? In 7-Eleven, FamiMart, and many convenience stores, right? We have TX, right? It used to be that, supposedly, right? Supposedly, when the price of X goes down, this will go down too, right? But what happened?
价格没有下来。
It's very hard for the TX price to go down, right? So what's that called? Price rigidity. Price rigidity. So because of that, price oftentimes it goes up quickly, right? But it doesn't really move down. And so because of that, can say, no, the market is not what classical school talk about. So, the adjustment is very easily and very smoothly. So it's not. And the other thing is that John Maynard Keynes, he is talking about Great Depression, a situation that with so many people out of jobs, so high the unemployment. And so in his opinion, what really matters is demand. If you have demand, then everything is done. So he says, the government has to intervene the market, okay? If you increase expenditure, encourage people to consume, then the unemployment will be gone, and it will back to equilibrium. So, in his opinion, first of all, there is a price rigidity of the market. Secondly, what matters is demand. So, demand is critical, okay? And so, the fundamental part of Keynesian model is consumption function. C is equal to C naught plus NPC times Y little d. And again, this is important because you need this to calculate IS curve. And so what is this? Y little d is equal to Y minus T. So after you pay your tax, then you can consume, okay? So the whole thing looks quite well. And if you remember, what is the model? How to get to equilibrium. So this is YS, okay, supply, and this is aggregate expenditure. So this part of it, okay, becomes what? Becomes aggregate expenditure, okay? And so usually, if in microeconomics, if you want to get to equilibrium, you need to have a price. But there is no price here. What we can do is using this 45-degree line, and for this 45-degree line, you know, the x-axis and y-axis will be equal to each other. And then you have aggregate expenditure looks like this. So you can find equilibrium here. Okay? Okay, so far so good. But the problem is that, you know, in the economy we have a very important variable, it is price. But here you don't have price. Okay? So what would you do? So we have to learn aggregate demand and aggregate supply. So here you have Y, okay, this is production income, and here you have price, okay? And then what is the supply part of it? Okay, supply, we assume when there is a section that is horizontal, it means that it matches Keynes's idea, okay? When the economy suffers from a lack of demand, so any kind of demand will not increase the price level. So basically, you know, this is the section reflects Keynes' idea. But normally, okay, if you want to increase more production, you will increase the demand on factors of production, on steel, labor, and etc. So price will go up. And then the last section is this vertical one. So why? Because for any given economy, there is a capacity. So this is the capacity when the production under full employment, that is the way it is, okay? And so from here, you can see this section reflects Keynesian idea. So increase in demand, okay, will increase in income, but no effect on the price level, okay? But we know that this is a special case. So usually what we have is here. So generally, when we draw aggregate demand and aggregate supply, we forget about this part because generally it won't be there. And so it's something like this. So then we have two reasons for inflation. One is aggregate demand goes up, right? When aggregate demand goes up, you get more income and higher price level. And the other one is aggregate supply goes down, right? Okay, and after we get to this point, what else do we have? Then we have sorry, it's kind of hard to erase it. Anyway. Then we get to the part of it we call business cycle. Okay, so what are the factors that affecting business cycle? You still remember it? Why we have business cycle? Many reasons, right? 刘佳姐 business cycle. Why we have business cycle? Answer. Why we have business cycle? No idea. 11点. Okay. Who? Sorry. Xu Jiasen, you wanna talk about it? No. I think it's a consequence of economic activities, not necessarily a reason for business cycle. Sorry, 备真 why there is business cycle? What incurs business cycle? Excuse me? Right, business, that is business cycle. But now I'm talking about why there's a business cycle. Why sometimes economy goes up, sometimes goes down, right? Why? Okay, so one of the reasons is actually quite simple, money supply, right? If money supply increases, economy is going to be good, right? And if money supply goes down, it's going to be bad, okay? What else? Keynes said consumption, right? Government expenditure, investment, right? These are all part of it. If you consume more, right? Economy is going to be good because people spend and they buy goods, right? And the companies got business, okay? The same thing, if government purchase goods, okay? For example, recently, there are several countries actually have performed quite well in their economy. So let me ask you this question, say, Li Boyan. Now, in this whole world, right? Which country has the best performance in stock market? Which country?
US.
No, it's not.
Best.
Actually, the fluctuation, right, goes up and down of the US economy, right? And so that applies to the stock market. So if you look at the stock market now, it's probably about the same what's going on in January or February. So it's really not quite good. So which one is the best? Excuse me? No. It's a small country. Zhu Guangyan, want to guess? In East Europe, a small country, the economy is good, and stock market is even better. And it is because of the war between Ukraine and Russia. And so they invested a lot in producing weapons. I will ask one more person, Sweden. Which country? East Europe. Even Germany, the economy is not very good. But after Merz become the prime minister, now the economy is getting better because they invest a lot in producing weapons. Like Zheng Caijin, which country?
I don't know.
Anyway, guess. East Europe.
China.
It is in Central Asia. Georgia is in Central Asia, East Europe. Poland, exactly. Okay. So even now, I told you, right? Germany, the economy really is not very good. But after they promised to invest in weapon production, is different. Okay, anyway. And also political factors. Also political factors. I told you before, okay, if you wanna get good performance in the stock market, which party, okay, should you vote for in the US? If you wanna get good performance in economy or stock market, which party that you have two parties, right? Huang Wenxin, sorry, Huang Wenxin not here. Chen Youxin. There are two major parties in the US. Which two? No idea. Xu Shaojian, two major parties in the US who are. One is no. Okay, Huang Yufeng. Two parties in the US. Which two? Lin Weixun. Which two parties? Yeah, I'm talking about political parties. Yes. Okay, good. The other one. Okay, good. So Republicans and Democrats. Okay, so if you would like to have better performance in the stock market, which one should you vote for? No. Feng Jie. Okay, so for the two parties, if you want to see better performance in stock market, which one should you vote for? Republican. Okay, Republican. Usually we call it is right. Okay, is the right party, and Democrats is the left. This is pro-business. Okay, so usually if you are rich persons or you run business, you vote for Republican. This is usually, okay, pro-labor, okay, and also pro-benefits. So recently there is a debate in the Congress, okay? What are they gonna do? The Republicans want to cut tax, okay? They want to cut tax and also cut benefits. And what would Democrats agree with that? The answer is no. Okay, so anyway, in terms of business cycle, we also talk about the portfolio and how to deal with the fluctuation of the economy, right? So it is something like this, right? So this is we call peak, and down is recession, and then this is we call trough. That is at the bottom of the economy, and then here is recovery. So see if you still remember what we have talked about. When it is at this peak, right? What kind of financial instrument is best? So we have several, financial instruments. The basic one is cash, right? And then you have stocks, and then you have bonds. Of course, you have ETF, a lot of things, right? But basically, it is things I mean, in terms of the properties, okay, the way it functions is like this. Okay, let us take a break.